We're live and no one cares. Literally no one right now.
Live to no one.
Live to nobody. Nobody's
Live
here.
across the galaxy with access to billions of listeners. We have 0.
They will come. They will show up.
That's okay. We don't want a bunch. We want it to be so cool that there's only a few.
We already got a
Like
bunch of comments and stuff too. People commented preemptively. Yeah.
Nice.
Ooh, we got like AC/DC questions. I guess that's what that's got to be
right
for.
off the bat.
Yeah, diving right in. So, yeah.
Wow.
Ah, Joe, Dr. Joe. I know that guy.
He does.
That's
He's like
awesome.
foot doctor, right?
Yeah.
I wonder how he
Dr. Joe
feels
listening.
about our shoe choices for training. You know what I mean?
Very-
He says that
definitely-
those are terrible Crocs.
Oh, he hates Crocs. He absolutely does hate Crocs.
Does he really?
Yeah, he does.
That's so good.
He's like, they're terrible for your feet.
Right.
He's
Yeah.
my favorite.
I remember
listener.
I said my foot hurt from riding once because, you know, when I first started riding again, my foot was like, my one foot was taking a beating.
Yeah.
And he sent me like all this advice about what to do. It's like, oh, this, you know, try this, try that, you know. And I was like, holy smokes, there's all these options.
Ooh, we
Remember I
gotta figure
sent you
this-
the advice too? I was like, stop being a... Never mind.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we can't edit this one, guys. Through. I gotta throw that out there to you.
I
Oh, and
just
check this
edited
out.
my own.
You did. That was really good. Check this out. It's gonna take me just a second.
I haven't sworn yet.
I know, we're like a minute
Only
in.
said 17 words.
I'm gonna throw this up here. It's gonna take me a minute to readjust the size.
Oh,
But watch this. We're gonna go like
you're gonna
Put
this.
it all the way to the right.
Down.
It'll be fine.
drop
Yeah.
it down on your black
Further right.
t-shirt.
Further right. Further right.
To the right? Like
Yeah, right over
here?
my face.
Right there?
There we go. Perfect. Best I've ever looked.
All right. We can go like this. Let's see. I gotta keep resizing it. Boom. And then we'll just drop her right
Looks
down.
like you have a
If I can
logo on
grab
your
it.
t-shirt.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? We'll just
One
put it right
single
there.
Can you pin it to the background like on a story and it'll follow your shirt around?
Yeah, probably.
You know what I mean?
All right, it'll have to live right there, I think.
So,
we go.
all right. Well, we got to answer that question about the pump up songs because I liked that one.
Oh yeah, we got one on the live feed about pump up song.
You just no.
Yeah,
you
someone
put it up
asked there was
at
an
the beginning.
AC/DC song and a Metallica
Oh,
song,
yeah.
but I didn't catch what the Metallica song was.
But we'll get back to it then. We should tell it,
okay.
but we should intro the show. That's what we
Got
should
to
do.
intro the show. We're live. Everybody, we're live. I know we've barely acknowledged that you exist, but there you are. You know, it's just bodybuilding. Obviously, we've done our 200th and our 201st episode. We're very happy to reach that milestone. So thank you to everybody who watched those episodes. If you missed them last week, go back, check them out. Lots of great feedback from them. Just the fact that the show keeps growing and you guys keep listening and keep coming back. And, you know, we do these episodes like our Saturday episode that was like we joked it was like a throwaway.
Yeah.
I had 3 people come up to me at the gym since Saturday and go, man, Saturday's show was awesome.
Yeah,
I'm like,
Never
what?
fails.
We talked about hockey for like 30 minutes.
yeah.
It was just funny, you know? And
They're Canadians. They loved it.
yeah, but the thing is I think all 3 of them said that it just reminded them of like a whole bunch of great memories that they'd kind of not thought about for a while. You know, growing up watching playoff hockey and like, you know, I think you talked about, you know what I mean? Like the hockey fights and stuff. So I guess that's what people get a kick out of. We can't talk about, you know, squatting constantly.
All the
So,
time.
Yeah. So, and remember, like, share, subscribe, comment, and
Ring the bell. Oh, I delayed
coming
that one.
in with the crash. I love it. And remember, IamMutant.com for all your supplement needs, all your mutant fuel. Go to IamMutant.com. They're a very proud sponsor of the show. They don't tell us what to do. They don't tell us what to say. They don't even really check in with us. And I don't think they actually watch, which is probably for the better.
Yeah,
Right?
only
It's
Christina
probably
watches,
best.
and she makes sure no one else does, which is great.
It's like
It's-
a parent who gives the keys to their teenager
Yeah,
and then is like, I don't want to know what you do in the car. Just have it back by midnight.
and don't get a ticket. You know,
Don't get
that's it.
Right?
Yeah.
So like they're banging in the back seat, they're smoking dope, they're drinking and driving, they're hitting mailboxes with baseball bats in the country. They're doing all that shit. Right?
You're bringing back
But
memories.
you got the car back at midnight. Right? So the parents are
Not a
like, you're a
scratch
good
on
kid. That's how Mutant treats us. So
And just like your parents, they know better, but they do it anyways.
yeah, like I know what I was doing in the back seat of that car, but I'm sure he's not.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Okay.
Amazing.
So go to IamMutant.com. Remember your code, BigRon20 and Dusty20,
Yep.
and we'll take care of you. And we get little gold stickers, I think, or someone, like when we're
I
in
got 2 last
kindergarten.
year. They were nice.
There was 2 last year. Okay. So, yes, we are live. So, producer Scott, thankfully he's here because he keeps us on target to actually do stuff that's like not structured, but
Yes.
he's like, we got to have an opening topic.
We do. Gotta have something
Dusty
to
and I-
bring the people in with bodybuilding
I
talk.
think about.
And then the rest of the time you can talk about, hockey fights.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So what's the opening topic? What do we got?
Biggest mistakes that you guys have made at high level bodybuilding. So I'm not talking about like you're just trying to figure things out and you're in the gym, but like, I mean, you had it figured out. People look at you and they're like, oh yeah, that dude is a legit bodybuilder. That level, because we all still make mistakes. So at that level, I wanted to hear, and I thought everybody else would enjoy this too. What is a mistake that you made, like completely thinking it wasn't going to be a mistake, and then afterwards you're like, oh man, I totally messed up.
I have so many. It's like just 10, right? You want me to limit this a little bit? Or? Well, I think the first one I can nail that I'm saying it quickly so Ron doesn't steal it because we both did it, was doing movements that our body told us not to do because you're supposed to do them. And we did them anyways because they have to work. And some joint doesn't like it, something doesn't like it. And it's not until you like step away from the sport and you realize like, oh, I don't do that at all anymore. My shoulders are still big and healthier and so many other things. So for me, there was a lot of forced movements that just did not make sense. The risk to reward wasn't there. And your body would tell you over and over, I don't like this. And you would do it anyways. And I think that would be my biggest one because I see other people do it. And I tease guys that do it when they comment on my posts. They're like, oh, I can't do skull crushers. They hurt my elbows. What should I do? And I sarcastically laugh and say, you shouldn't do them. And I think back to my career and I'm like, but I would have done them.
Yeah.
I completely agree with Dusty on that one. I think that forcing movements that I thought I had to do, I mentioned this quickly to my training partner the other day between sets. I said, I think I wish I had this knowledge of training when I was still competing because I have so much more like really deep understanding of how my body works now after all these years of training retired. And I realized like, man, I wasted so much energy with certain movements that just weren't for me. And I progressed them up to some crazy poundages and they just didn't do a lot for my body. And it was such a fucking waste of time. And I think that a lot of my injuries stem from those forced movements. And a lot of my problems now stem from them. And I think some of the nerve damage I even have, like I have one lat and tricep that are pretty fucked up. And I think that's from stuff I did to my shoulders.
Messed up.
Yeah. I think this forcing stuff was like a really great one that Dusty picked up.
So what were the movements for each of you guys that you wouldn't do if you go back and do it all over again?
Well,
My first that I did throw out, but I have to bring it up is squats.
Okay.
And I think that one didn't cause me an injury, but I wasted a lot of time. Because they didn't develop my legs. Because I think between my genetic body and the fact that I should be lifting things up that are heavy, not trying to be pretty. It was a hip and glute movement for me.
So, yeah.
But the problem was also ego gets involved and you're squatting 600 and so you're strong and it must be doing something, but it's not. So that would be my one that didn't necessarily injure me, but I think that kind of fell into that line of what Ron was talking about where like, you got to remember like that was a long time ago. Squats were a must.
Yeah.
Like you didn't dare get in a Smith machine to squat in the early 2000s. Like that was weak. You did that if you were afraid to squat.
Yeah.
it was the Ronnie era. It was the Ronnie era, right?
Oh, yeah.
Ronnie was a king. That whoever is Mr. Olympia used to have a dramatic effect on how everybody trained. So Ronnie brought in the squats and the deads, man.
How much did you guys each do parking lot lunges with, because like Ronnie made those famous.
Oh,
You know what I mean? You had to have that bar loaded too.
I could only do 225, like because
Only.
of how I would do them. But like, that's a movement I will also say that falls into the category of like a deadlift, where it's like you don't want to do it because
Yeah.
they suck, and you got to take all the crap out there, and you got to load it all up. And you know, for me, because I've had the bad shoulder since hockey, like I needed two guys out there with me, which means I had to find two people as dumb as me to go outside in the Arizona summer and lunge. But it's a movement I think needs to come back. You
Yeah.
want to see your legs explode, do heavy walking lunges in a parking lot. You know,
Yeah.
plus, I mean, come on, there is a little bit just it's kind of cool. You're in the back, sweating your ass off, you know,
Well-
doing dumb shit.
Yeah, there's all sorts of movements for me. I think everyone was doing Yates rows, right? Everyone was doing the kind of the high barbell row that
Yeah.
Dorian did. And when you watch Dorian do it, you're like, oh, his back, like, poof, like you just see it. But
It makes sense.
but
when he does
I
it.
felt like it was around like, I mean, I got up to almost 4 plates when I was in my 20s, and that was like in the like late 90s, early 2000s. I was doing almost 4 plates on those. But then when I had a friend of mine talk me into bending over farther, like going like, mid shin with the bar and flatter back and rowing with a much longer rep, I felt like, oh man, these feel so much better and so much more effective for my back, for me, with the long arms. And I mean, I got a completely different frame than Dorian did, right?
Yeah.
And so when I changed how I did certain things like that, I thought, fuck, I wasted so much time. And then I saw my back like grow. And so there was a lot of stuff like that. And squats are another one. I mean, here's how I look at it. Dusty, weren't you squatting 6 plates for like 10 reps?
Yeah, I was always really strong with those.
So
That's wild.
Here's my logic. If you're squatting 6 plates for 10 reps deep, and you don't have incredible quads, then squats aren't the best movement for you. Like anyone who's squatting 6 plates is either, using their glutes and hams a lot, or they're going to have massive fucking quads.
Huge
Sorry,
quads.
swear word.
It was
Yeah,
like 3 or 5. That's all right.
Sorry. But, so you know what I
Call it
mean?
one. Call it
So
one.
like, and look at me when I was like 25 years old, I was doing bent rows with almost 4 plates, but I didn't have a crazy back.
Huh.
So like mechanically I'm strong, I'm able to move the weight, but it's not doing enough,
Right.
Like I should have massive lats, like giant, ribeye steaks hanging off each side of me if I'm doing 4 plate rows. So if you have a movement that you're crazy strong in and you don't have a great body part, that
Yeah.
movement's like, it's deceiving you. Like you're strong there, but it doesn't mean anything. Your muscle's not growing enough. Your risk to reward benefit is just getting worse and worse as you get stronger and stronger in that movement. We go to 7 plate squats, then what? Your risk to reward benefit is just off the charts bad, and you still don't have big legs.
Yeah.
So you have to like think about like guys that bench 4 plates for reps and they don't have an awesome chest. It's like, how much more are you going to put on that bar before your pec tendon just tears off?
Right.
Right.
Like you should be doing something else to make your chest grow, because this isn't the key. Just adding weight to your flat bench is impressive, but it's not doing why you're here to get a big chest. And I think that was something that was in the way of certain things. We get these blocks in our head, and it happens to high level bodybuilders too.
What did you find, Ron, for your back? If that heavy barbell row wasn't doing it, like what did work for you in the end?
Well, just bending over a lot farther and getting a longer rep and like, like more reaching and stuff. It just, that was how my back grew, just like one arm dumbbell rows and like reaching for the floor and like right back up to the hip, none of this 45-degree stuff. You know what I mean?
What
I always
about
hurt my low back? Like I literally, I wanted to do those, and from jump, I felt tight in the low back. You know what I mean? Just from holding my body in that position against gravity. But yeah, I'm with you 100 on the fact that I think that's where a lot of people make the mistake, especially like you said, Ron. I mean, it's fun to be the guy in the corner with 6 plates aside on the squat,
Right.
but it's more fun to be the guy in the corner with 315 that has monstrous quads.
Right.
Or
the guy who's not even squatting. The guy who's not even squatting who has
exactly.
monstrous quads. Yeah. And there's a lot of things like that with the training that I did, I look back at how we used to press. Like I used to have
Real wide.
my elbows were way out there on everything for chest. Cause that's how we were all like, oh, you got, the more your elbows are, the more pec you're using, and now we know that that's really hard on your shoulders. I'm lucky. I'm lucky I'm in the shape I'm in still with my shoulders, cause I was doing everything like that. We bring our elbows in a lot more now. I do because of like necessity, but we know now that you actually get a better contraction and like everything functions better. And so we're a lot smarter now, but we missed the memo on some things.
Late to the party, like always.
So do you have anything, Ron, that's like not training related? Because Crohn's Lifter said, interesting, you guys both went to training for mistakes. Anything with nutrition or prepping for shows that you would have done differently too?
I made all sorts of mistakes that way too. Like with like not mistakes like how you put it, where you thought they were going to make you better.
Yeah,
you're actually trying to get better by doing something, and then you realize after, like I did a bunch of shows where I did my own diet, right? So I made some mistakes like with carbs and carbing up and depleting too much. My main thing was I would over deplete. That if it was up to me, I would always over deplete, right? Because I thought, just gotta get peeled. So I wasn't afraid to just suck down. I'd do like 50 grams of carbs for 6 weeks straight, and then after the show, go, why did I get so light? Oh yeah, right. Carbs every day for 6 weeks, and so just little things like that. There's lots of mistakes I made with nutrition. There's off seasons where I didn't eat enough and I didn't grow at all, and then there's years I got way too heavy. Like the year I went to 330 wasn't necessary. It's crazy to look back on, but the first 20 pounds I lost in like the first 10 days. It was just water.
Yeah,
I was like, did I need to carry all that water around with me? Didn't need to do that.
You lost over 2 gallons of water, basically.
Yeah. When you're 300 pounds, you can hold 2 gallons, easily.
It's like
right?
taking off a pair of socks. You just miss a couple carb meals.
I can't think of anything like at the high level that I would say that I made a massive mistake on, but I would say in hindsight, similar thing with Ron was, as I was heading to that level, I was very obsessive about just getting as big as possible. And looking back, especially if most of the listeners here are not genetic phenoms, you really got to look at yourself and the things you can't mess up. I went all in on my strengths. So I was like, okay, I got to be as big as possible because my physique is ugly. And I'm just going to get huge. But I think if I would have done that slower and been mindful of my midsection, it wouldn't have been as ugly. And maybe even if it wasn't as big, it would have looked bigger.
Okay.
You lose some of that. So I think the rush to be like, okay, I just got to get big and who gives a shit was a problem. So if like when I'm advising guys now, I think some of them, if they know my story well, would be a little confused because I'm constantly touching the brakes on how big we're getting.
Really?
And watching the midsection and making sure, okay, we have that under control. I mean, guys would be dead off season. I'm like, all right, are you doing your vacuum work? Are you doing your transverse abdominal work? Because I was never doing it. Never.
We didn't really know about that. Like it wasn't part of our vocab back then.
No,
you know what I mean?
And I wish it was, because if you control that, and that's another area, it's like training abs. Like a lot of people train abs during prep, but they don't in their off season.
Yeah.
Well, I'd much rather you can control your transverse abdominals when you're eating so much food, because then it's going to be a breeze when you're in prep, and you're going to have a lot more control over it. It's going to look a lot better on stage. So I would say that's probably an area that I missed on A, because I just didn't know about it, but B, just it's really one of those things. I used to believe it's what's the fastest from point A to point B, and that's not really how I would function it now, not in bodybuilding.
Yeah.
You're muted. Ron's muted.
I'm muted. I had some barking
There
dogs.
you go.
Yeah. There's years where I showed up and like, I was like, oh, wow, I'm really happy with that look, whatever about the placing, but, I had a great look that year. But there was always a bunch of stuff. I was like, oh, man, a little mistake there, a little mistake there. Like I don't think, like, don't think there's a single prep. I did 24 shows. I don't think there's a single show where I'm like, I could have done this, I could have done that. Like, you know, we're never happy. We're never really happy with the physique. We're never really happy with the presentation. There's always something that could have been better. There's, you know, that's kind of one of the problems about being a bodybuilder, you know, at any level, but especially when you're like, you know, trying to turn pro or a new pro or like kind of up in that level, is you're just so critical of everything.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's no year where I thought, man, I did everything right. Like, that never ever happened. Ever, not once. It was always like, oh man, you know.
But do you find you look back, both of you guys, and realize that your physique was a lot better than you gave credit for? Not against anybody else, just looking back at yourself.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have a handful of photos I look at and I'm like, Jesus. Like, I mean, now, like, you know, I'm almost 10 years removed from that, you know, so I look back at like some of the stage photos and I'm like, oh man, you know, the end of the day, I can't believe I ever looked like that. You know, like, you know what I mean? Like 266 pounds on stage, you know, like I just, whatever, it's just crazy, you know? So, and that also is what makes me respect all bodybuilding. Like, I understand the frustration that some guys must go through who maybe don't have the genetics to ever turn pro, but they love bodybuilding and they're trying to win like the local show or the state show or something like that. I have just as like, that's why I have so much respect for all of those guys. Cause it's the same battle for everyone.
Agreed.
Like, it's the same. It doesn't get easier. It doesn't get better. The battle, you go to the next level, you still feel the same about your physique. You're like, man, I need bigger arms. These guys are all so good.
Yeah.
I just like it does not change. It didn't change for me. I was always like, you know, that's why I trained the way I did, because I was desperate to try to get better, because I felt like everyone around me was like, all the guys I was competing against were so good. I was just like, man, you know.
Do you feel like that helps you though? You know what I mean? Because I feel like I've always had a sense of competitiveness. Like, even like before bodybuilding, when I was in art school, we had to do a critique like every Friday or every 2 Fridays, and we'd have to put up whatever we're working on. All our photos would go up there, and I'd be like, I not only want to have like not the best stuff in this critique, I want to like bury everybody by a mile. So like I'll put extra hours in the dark room. You know what I mean? You do the same thing in the gym, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think I was always aware of, I mean, because I got programmed with that like recovery stuff with the Dorian era. I was always aware, like, okay, I don't want to be one of those add more guys, because I know what'll happen there. And I experienced it a little bit. Like, I did too much cardio a few times. I had a year where I double split my training and hit everything twice a week.
Yeah.
Right.
And just buried myself in volume and effort.
Like doubled the volume, basically.
Yeah, it's like, well, yeah, at least. And
At
least. I wasn't any better at the show. Like, and then I thought, wow, what a waste of effort. What an inefficient year.
Yeah.
I like did all those sets and I trained everything twice a week, and I wasn't really better on stage. Like, what a huge waste of time. And to me, time is money. So
of course.
So to me, that's just a really big waste. You know, if you can look the same with half the volume the year before,
yeah,
like
that's a huge loss.
Wrong. Yeah. I had a couple years like that, you know, where I just bombed my body with volume and wound up not really any better, you know. So, you know, I always think of that. Man, I could have been just napping on the couch and resting, you know.
That's what I would have been doing.
I got another question for you guys.
Yes.
But before I said it, I wanted to tell everybody who's watching, we're going to need listener questions for this episode too. So I've got a couple of them here. I'm highlighting everything you guys have. In fact, we just got another one from Andy. I've got some good comments too. So keep commenting that stuff. If you've got any over-unders, post those up as well. And we will get to them. But I did have to ask you guys. So this came to me a couple days ago. I had the chance to go down to Elite FTS and record a podcast with Dave Tate. So that was...
Love the shirt. Love the
Thank
shirt.
you. Yeah, I wore the shirt today. He gave this to me. It's got something cool on the back, too. It's got the... I don't know if you can see
nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a special shirt that he made up for the guests. So
Oh,
I
that's
feel
awesome.
Cool.
I feel privileged. But
You're one of the club.
yeah, so and it was awesome, man, getting to hang out down there at Elite, and because it's a place that you can't just like pay for a day pass and walk in. It's a
Yeah.
private place, and I spoke to him on the show for like over 3 hours. We talked for like another 2-3 hours after that. Like it was a full day of literally just talking to Dave Tate, which blew my mind. But it got me thinking because we were talking about doses of gear. And I had said one of my thoughts was, you gotta draw the line somewhere. And we're talking about guys who don't need to use as much. And I mentioned Dusty. I was like, Dusty's first cycle was like 100 milligrams of Primo. He gained like 20. Was it 20 pounds that you gained on that cycle, by the way?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, let's say it's 20 or 22 pounds. Yeah.
So you gained over 20 pounds on 100 milligrams of Primo. That's like, a 1/7 of a lot of people's Primo dose plus test plus everything else. And we're talking about though, like, where do you draw the line? Because as a bodybuilder, you always want more. So if you can get 22 pounds out of 100 milligrams of Primo, why stop there? So the question that I started thinking was, so you probably, you've been able to get big and do a lot of great stuff without doing crazy doses, but you had to want to know, because you're a bodybuilder, what was the highest you had gone to? Because you had to have tried.
Oh no, that's I think that's the misconception is there was a big, especially back when I was more relevant, there was a lot of conversation. I was lying and all these things. Like, it's not that I never did those things. It's that they didn't garner the return. Like exactly what Ron was talking about with the training. It's like, it's not that I didn't say like, what will 1,400 milligrams of test do?
Yeah.
You just do it with your normal cycle and you're like, oh, nothing. Like I would see different side effects or sexual side effects. I'm like, whoa, I ain't trading that shit in. Let's get back down to 750 where I like life. And that was literally how it was. And it wasn't financial. Like that's the thing I think people get confused on is if it would have worked better and would have made sense, I would do it. But that's kind of been a built-in argument for me with everything I do in life. It's like, okay, but is it worth more? So if I spend, let's say, double the money or double the risk, I need to be getting at least 3/4 additional benefit, or if I can't get double. So like if I was going to put on 10 pounds with 750 milligrams of test, but if I went to 1,500, I was going to go on 15. I'm in. Like, let's do it. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I think that's where the things happen. And I know Ron and I've talked about this in person before. That never was the case. The only thing I can say that I ever took high dose, so I was like, oh, okay, that's the difference, was growth. I ran growth at just 8 IUs, which was double my usual during a part of a prep. And that was the year that Chris and I were going along, and my weight came down, I want to say to 252 or something. And then we upped it, and I stepped on stage at over 260, like on the stage.
No kidding.
And I was
You didn't
like-
have to like pull that. It didn't like create too much water or anything like
We
that.
ran it till the Wednesday before.
Okay.
And
Wow.
then literally when I stepped on the stage and I was sliced out of my head and the muscle was round, and I'm a typical white guy, so I don't have round muscle. And I was like, okay, real growth taken at high level during prep works. No two ways about it. I put on muscle mass during a prep. But other
Yeah.
than that, literally nothing. Everything else that's people laugh, but it's 300 trend, 300 mastron, and whatever test. That's my baseline. That was it. Always was.
I'll be
Anything
damned.
more than that, I didn't get anything back from it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Ron.
Yeah. I had one year where I just did everything a lot. And that was out of frustration. And it was, I've talked about 2013 before. It was like one of my worst years competitively. And I trained the most by far. And I took the most gear by far. And it was my worst year placing wise.
Huh.
And I didn't like how I looked. And, I was very disappointed with everything. It made me take 2014 off completely because I was just disillusioned with whether I had another show in me at all. And I just sledgehammered my body that year. And I look back and, you know, after it was over, and I thought, man, that was so stupid. Like I just turned everything to 11, just cranked the amp, you know, like Spinal Tap, just fucking 11, 11, 11, you know, and I wasn't better. I was worse. I was worse. I got hurt a bunch of times, a bunch of just dumb shit. And it was all because I was like desperate. I was like, man, I was just swinging for the fences, you know? And then that's why 2015 came around and I said to Chris, this is my last show and I'm not doing anything dumb. I'm just going to train smart and try to stay healthy and just come in peeled. And if that's it, that's it. And I just happened to get my pro card. But, you know, so that's how that all went down. 2013 was like the peak of my stupidity. And it was just because I was like, you know, I'd been on this conservative guy, you know, with doses. Everyone kind of knew me as a lower dose guy and, you know, all that stuff. And I thought, man, did I waste so many years doing that I missed my window? You know, that's how I kind of thought. I thought, man, I did that low dose stuff for so long that now I'm too old to turn pro, you know? So that's why I cranked it. And it was just, what a waste of time. And, you know, obviously my blood work was a disaster afterwards. And I was like, oh, God, I got to fix all this. And everything went back to normal just by resting. But, you know, it was just one of those dumb years. And it was all out of frustration. And, you know, and that comes down to making emotional decisions and how when you make decisions with emotions, you never, ever, you usually almost never make the right call, you know? And I just had an emotional year. I'd gone through a big breakup in 2012. So there was like all this just, you know, it was just one of those like perfect storms for me to be an idiot, you know?
That was the year then. Was that the year that Chris said he wouldn't want to work with you again if that's the way you were?
Actually, that was the year before that when I went through the breakup.
Okay,
I nailed that prep. That was a smart prep, smart training. Like, you know, that was me being sensible with the prep and training, but my mindset was terrible. Chris said I was negative.
How did you deal with that whole thing then? 2014, you took off. You know, I can relate to that. And it's funny because as much as we say like, oh, you can't really base how good of a bodybuilder you are off of your placing because we never know what's going to happen. And it's easy for me to say that to somebody else. But when you're in those shoes and you're the guy that doesn't get it, like it sounds like you almost quit bodybuilding and would have never turned pro at that point.
I saved him. It was simple.
Yeah.
I turned pro and he's like, if he can turn pro, I can absolutely turn pro. And that was it.
Actually, I remember when Dusty turned pro. I remember being like, oh fuck, they're just giving these away now. Like, if I leave now,
can have one.
I'm gonna regret it. The 10
It
guys
was,
behind me are all
like
getting
watching
hard.
Oprah. You know, you get a pro card, you get a pro card.
Oh God!
It's like under your seat.
That was it. So yes, I saved Ron's pro card.
Yes.
I mean, that would have given me confidence if I was coming up. I'd be like, if this guy can get one, yeah.
We'll start calling Dusty the Pro Maker, but for a different reason.
Yeah. It was funny.
Oh,
2014 was funny because I saw a bunch of people like this guy that I'd competed against for years, and I'd placed ahead of him every time. He was a great bodybuilder, but I'd always placed ahead of him. And he wound up winning the overall in 2014. And I was like, fuck, man, you know, that guy turned pro, and I always placed ahead of that guy. And you know, like, am I too old now? Like, am I too busted up? Have I had too many injuries? You know, all the guys from behind me now are starting to turn pro. Like, man, you know, like, what did you know, I just thought maybe I missed my window by just not quite leaning into, and one of the things was gear. I thought, man, did I not lean into the gear hard enough? Like, if I would have leaned into the drugs, a little more with a little more thought and a little bit more like, you know, a little bit more aggression, maybe it would have added up over time and I'd already be a pro. You know what I mean? I had all those thoughts, and that's kind of, but you know, 2013, it just was such a disappointment that I knew that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
So just one of those things, you know, but yeah, it comes down to making decisions with emotions, you know?
I like that. Yeah. Yeah. That makes total sense.
You know, you gotta. That reminded me, and I know you know this story, Ron, but I gotta share it. So back in the day, Chris Cook, I was a huge fan of, he became a friend. He had won the super heavyweights at the USA's 2 years in a row, but couldn't win the overall. And back then, that wasn't good enough to turn pro.
Yeah.
So he reached out to Chris Aceto after the USA's. And he said, "Hey man, I gotta give this show a run. Will you help me?" And Chris said, "Sure. I'm going to charge you X." I know the number, but I don't want to say it. And Chris Cook was like, it's a lot, man, on the short window. And he goes, "Well, if you don't win, I'll give it back to you."
Huh? No kidding.
He was like, "Okay." So they do the show. He wins the overall at nationals, and Chris Cook told me this. He goes, "I'm sitting there afterwards, and we're at dinner, and Chris Aceto actually came to dinner, and he goes, I'm just kind of like staring out, and Aceto said to him, 'You good?' And he goes, he looked at him and he go, I always thought it was the drugs.
Huh?
Yeah. And you took them all away."
No kidding.
Yeah, so it was like he played a big role. That story played a big role in me listening to Dante and the people who kept telling me I don't need more.
Yeah.
Because like you asked, I mean, yes, I am a what does it take to get where I want to get guy, but having the right people in your corner, they're like, that's not going to be the secret for you. And then having his story, a guy who really was genetically that good, say actually he did better with less, was a wake up. Because there was no reason for him to tell me that. It wasn't like he wasn't pretending, he wasn't geared out of his mind for years.
Right.
It just worked better.
I actually can say without hesitation that the 3 years that I can remember using the most gear were my 3 worst looks.
No kidding.
It's really crazy. And then if I think about like the 3 or 4 shows where I was at my absolute like best condition, like, you know, aside from the development of my physique, but the best conditioning were all the years where I was on like kind of the least amount of gear. And it just makes me think like, you know, we think about recovery and your body managing all these things going on at the same time. And, you know, we think, well, would you add 5 working sets of legs to your week? There'd have to be a benefit because that's 5 extra crazy hard sets that are going to dig into my recovery and blah, 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 blah. But when we add drugs, we're also digging into our body's energy, our body's ability to handle and manage and metabolize everything. And, you know, and when we just pile the drugs on, we're giving our body a bunch more to do and a bunch more to work with and a bunch more to deal with. And, you know, it's like we forget that it's all like, it's like running a city. Like if you just bring 5,000 people in and put them in new condos, well, now you need some garbage men to take the garbage away.
Yep.
Did you hire some more garbage men?
Right.
If you didn't, you're going to have garbage problems. Right? And that's what we're doing when we're bringing more drugs in. Bring in more drugs, bring in more drugs, bring in more drugs. Okay, well, can your body get rid of can your body manage all this? Like what's going on in your body? Yeah. And I think that's part of the problem when guys are prepping for shows on all this gear. And they're like, oh, I got these water. I'm waking up watery. I think I got to drop my potatoes. It's like, it's not your potatoes, man. You're on like 500 tren and your kidneys are backed up and you're not healthy. And, you know, so, you know, or whatever. They'll point to anything but the gear.
Yeah.
Like, you know, my legs aren't looking real sharp in the morning. It's like, well, are your kidneys flushing properly? Like, how healthy or unhealthy are you?
I'm pissing coffee, but anyways.
Yeah.
Coffee. My urine's really orange all the time, but like, man, I'm worried I'm on too many, too many carbs.
Starches too high.
That sort of stuff.
Better cut out artificial sweeteners. That's the answer.
I'm on too much Splenda.
It's the Splenda. Always blame the Splenda.
There's like natty guys running around with shredded glutes drinking Splenda.
Yeah, all day.
So I got some questions too if you need more, Scott. I got some solid ones.
Yeah.
Excellent. We did get a super chat too from LS, so I need to give him a shout out. He said super chat for the algorithm robot overlords. He says, on my way to check in. Love your content. Keep up the good work. So that was very nice of him. We appreciate that. For $4.99. Let me see what we got here. Yeah.
I love the robot overlord reference. I don't know something about that. Love it.
Felt like a T-shirt to me.
Well, why don't we start with that one that Ron was so excited about that Connie had posted? He says, "Good morning, brothers. What's your number one song that gets you jacked up for your gym sessions?" I have two: AC/DC Thunderstruck and Metallica, I Disappear.
Ah, those are good tunes. If I'm like really need some extra, hot shot of adrenaline, I put on Pantera, I'm Broken live from the live album that they
That's a
released.
good one.
They did a live album in '97, and I'll put on the I'm Broken, and I'll crank that. And man, that song to me is like the riff and everything. It's just such an awesome riff, and then it's such a heavy song, and that live version's extra juicy because of the outro on it. They do an extended outro on it, which I won't get into, but it's just like so heavy, and it's just you just find yourself just fucking let's go. So yeah, Pantera, I'm Broken is like, that's a break glass in case of fire. Break glass. I put that one out.
What about you, Scott? Now that I know your music preference, I'm more excited to hear where you're at.
Oh man! So Ron, I sent Ron some dubstep, but I kind of tried to trick you a little bit because there was rap in it, and the reason I did that, I really liked that song, but I was like, this will be a good gateway dubstep song for Ron because he'll be able to associate with the rap still. See what I did there? And it's like, it's not too abstract. It's only a 3-minute long thing. There's a verse, chorus, verse. So he'll
little structure.
He's not directly putting you on the drug. He's lacing your weed right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he's going to convert you later.
Right. The next time I go, he's going to go, I don't have any weed. I only have this.
Yeah, we only have real dubstep now.
That'll do. I like it. It's fine. Give it to me.
Yeah.
All right.
So it depends on the mood, but one that comes to mind that I don't think people would necessarily associate me as liking is Lil Wayne, "Drop the World." I love that track.
Fantastic.
Dude, he is mind blowing. Like they used to play at Powerhouse Highland Park. They play all sorts of like really dark rap and stuff, like hardcore stuff, and no editing, anything like that.
Beautiful.
And I remember hearing some Lil Wayne stuff up there that I hadn't heard before, and it's like 95 degrees, and so it's probably like 105 in the gym. Even though you see like the fans turning, you don't feel it, and you're just like sweating, and you're doing a John Meadows program, and you're like 27 sets in. And it's like you're at that point where you're sweating, but you're starting to feel cold at the same time. You know what I'm talking about?
I love that I know exactly what you mean.
And it's like you're just in a zone. You know what I mean? Like in between sets, you're just kind of like dazing off a little bit. And then when it's time to go, you just turn it the fuck on. I know I swore, but I had to.
You had to. He's passionate.
And a song like "Drop the World" might come on. And when it does, that next set is like, that's life. Truly, that's like the set. You know what I'm saying?
I'm so glad I asked you this question. I don't even want to answer. I'm just going to say the words and be like, next question, please. I love Lil Wayne because I'm stunned by that, and that is my go-to.
Dude, he's insane, too, I think he really is, in the best way.
Yeah, that's a compliment. So I think, I'm curious to know what Ron's musical thoughts are on this, but I love Bodies by Drowning Pool.
Oh yeah.
Oh, so
like
what movie
turn
was
it
that?
on while you're sliding your knee sleeves on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're good.
So what war movie was that where they crank bodies in the tank, and then they roll out and they just. What?
I don't even know, but that's the greatest. The scene in my head is already locked in.
Oh yeah, it was like they're in Afghanistan or Iraq or something, and they like load it into like the iPod or whatever they're on back then, and they like whatever CD player or whatever, and they like crank it and they're like just going. Yeah, they're blasting bodies. I love that. I can't remember what movie that was, but that scene I always think of that scene when I hear that song.
Yeah, that's great.
Did you guys ever see
Drowning
that?
Pool, right? Who sings that?
Yeah.
Drowning Pool.
Drowning Pool. Yep.
Yeah.
You guys ever see
You're
The
listening to that
Parrot?
today? I know you are.
Is that
What's
the song
Yeah,
is that the Let the Bodies Hit the Floor, right? That's what it says?
Yeah.
Do you guys ever see the parrot that sings that?
No, but now I need
I
to.
swear to God. I just pulled it up right now. Let's
TikTok
let
video?
No, it's like somebody's parrot sings it because the guy who owned it. I'm letting a commercial play right now on my phone, and
Okay.
I'll play it over my phone here in a second. We have to watch an Acura commercial or something.
I'm not buying it. That is amazing.
He goes on too. That's not it. Like he just keeps
I wonder
going.
how many times he had to play the song for the parrot to like pick that up.
Yeah,
Put it on
right.
repeat.
I wonder if it's
Just
ever
put it on
uncomfortable when he
repeat
brings
and
a
leave the
first date
house.
home.
All right.
And she comes in on a dark night, and the parrot starts singing that song. And the lady's like, "Did I come to the wrong house?"
Yeah.
Oh, I have to throw this one up next because Jesse gave us a super chat. Thank you very much, Jesse. He says, currently 27 weeks out from my first show. Already have Dusty in my corner. But what are some tips you would give? Or if you could go back in time, some things that you would do to change your guys' first competition. And I got another super chat too. Thank you.
Don't go.
Thanks, Jesse.
I know you got Dusty coaching you, so listen to him. But don't go pigging out too much to try to ram it all in before the diet, because then you just get fatter. Then you just got to diet harder. Just be normal. Don't get too excited. It's not that big of a deal.
He's actually the one I told you guys, like I think 2 weeks ago, or when we did a live. He did another super chat, but it's like I had to like tell him to go on vacation. Like I was gonna go, but he's like, I got my food. I got the gym across the street. And I'm like, you're not gonna have any family when you come home.
Yeah.
They're all going to leave you.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no fear of that with him. I think that the big thing is the regret from the first show, or the thing I would change. And it was just for me, I wasn't where he's at mentally yet. But like, it wasn't until my like third show that I realized that the suffering was the fun. And when you really dig into that, when it starts to hurt and get worse and worse, you know how it is later in your career, you start smiling.
Yep.
Because you're like, oh, it's coming. And I used to think that when cardio got hard, or you do a set that was really nasty when you felt terrible, you're like, no one else is doing this. Like that was a fun feel.
That. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to ride that. And also remember that the one thing I always told myself, and I don't know when I started doing this, but it was like for quite a long time, but I always would tell myself, prep. I mean, here I am, a terrible example, because I was like an absolute bodybuilding obsessive nut job. But I would say, like, you should still be functional. Like, I always had a job, I was always working. Like, these people that can't work for like the last 2 months of their prep. Oh my God, I can't work. Like, I was like, it's software running in the background. Like, you really only train an hour a day, and then you do your cardio. So like, you have a couple hours a day that are actually devoted to your cooking and all that stuff. But the rest of it's just software running in the background. Like when you just like minimize a window on your computer, you just leave it on. Like your body's burning fat while you sit there. It's burning fat while you're talking to your coworkers. It's burning fat while you're sleeping because you're in a deficit. Relax. Let the diet do the work. You don't have to like feel like you're like, oh, did I burn any fat today? Yeah, if you followed the diet you did, all you have to do is follow the diet.
Yeah.
And you'll get leaner. That's a thing. They all try to micromanage something. Okay, give me this diet, but like I really want to burn more fat than that. So I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. Just eat what's on the sheet. It's so easy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Or even worrying about like, am I losing fat? Like, don't worry about it. If you've got a coach, you've got Dusty on your side, don't even worry about it. Because if it's not working, he's going to change it.
He'll
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just tell him what you weigh next week. And
that's the beauty
What
of
I
having
had before is I've had people, I'm sure you guys have had this too, where the show gets closer. So you start making tweaks just based on the timeline. And they get an email back like, do I not look good? And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, you changed everything. I'm like, well, we only have 8 weeks left.
Yeah.
I'm pacing the timeline. You know what I mean? It's like, so that's a thing too, is like, I always ask people, like, don't try to read into, like, we're not dating and I'm trying to secretly like get in your mind. It's just part of the process. So that's
where you don't call for 3 days. Is that the,
I
got
called
you
immediately, and I was like, listen, I got to line you up because I got your sister tomorrow night. And
if you want to get in now,
yeah, you want in or not?
Yeah. My first prep, I got laid off, which I was like, and it was something that was coming because the company I'd worked for, like, things were slowing down and they were cutting my hours back, and I knew I was getting toward getting laid off. I was like, well, this is going to be perfect. Now I'll just have like that last, 8-10 weeks just to focus on my diet. Let me tell you, that was the worst thing I could have done because I had nothing else to do. I was like, I won't even try to find a job until after the show, and it was miserable because then I'm like, okay, well, I did what I needed to do. Now what? So I just spent the whole time being hungry versus my second show. My girlfriend had thought it was such a great idea to compete. She's like, man, that was so cool for you. I want to do it. So she's dieting and I'm helping her. And she competed at a smaller show 2 weeks before my show, the next time I got into shape. So right. I'm worried about her the whole time. We get to her show and I was already ready. Like, we walked backstage and people were like, oh, what, you competing today? Because they thought, plus I was tanning and stuff, but like, and I look at pictures of us and I'm backstage and my face was like totally sunken in. I'm like, why didn't I just step on stage there as well? Because I was ready, 100%. But then I realized, it dawned on me after her show, I was like, oh, wow. So I'm getting on stage in like under 14 days now. And I didn't think about it at all. Like you said, Ron, just software running in the background,
Mm-hmm. That's funny.
That's awesome. All right. Well, we had one more super chat here from Connor, and this one is for Ron. Hi guys, love the show. Ron is gonna love this. Here's an underrated, overrated question: Van Halen, and thank you, Connor.
Van Halen's a great one to pick because they got those two different eras, right? They got the David Lee Roth from 78 to 84, and then Sammy Hagar came in. And it was Van Hagar for a long time. So I was a huge David Lee Roth fan, and obviously Eddie Van Halen's one of the greatest possibly the greatest guitar player of all time ever. He maybe is the best,
Wow.
So I mean, it's kind of like Black Sabbath. The first 10 years with Ozzy, like, that's all that matters. All the albums with Dio, no one listens to them. They're never included in the greatest hits packages. Like 3 songs off of like 6 albums, 7, 8 albums get used, right? Dio is great, but it just wasn't the same. Black Sabbath is the first 6 albums with Ozzy, or whatever it is, 1970 to 79. It's the Ozzy era. That's it. That's all that matters when you listen to Black Sabbath. That's what I'm talking about. And that for me, it's almost the same for Van Halen. It's David Lee Roth. It's the first several albums. It's the Van Hagar stuff. I just, Sammy came in. Sammy's lyrics are all about love and the heart and stuff. And David Lee Roth's lyrics were all about banging chicks and partying and driving cars. It's just not the same. You know what I mean? Like, there's a few great Sammy songs, and obviously Eddie's guitar playing and the band being awesome, makeup. Like, there's some great Van Hagar stuff. Like, the whole 5150 album was really, really good. But I'm a David Lee Roth fan. So it's, when you go over underrated, it's just such this giant monster you're trying to slot into anything. But I would say that now they're generally underrated. There's like an entire generation of people that don't realize, like, they first of all, don't care about guitar playing. So it doesn't matter what they hear. You could play them any guitar player and they just go, oh yeah, that's a bunch of noise. Right. But Eddie Van Halen, like, to be that much of a pioneer and that much of a guy that like invented techniques and changed equipment, like, he modified his own amp to do something that amps didn't do. And then every amp was like, oh, that's a great idea. And now they're all like that. Like, you know what I mean? So
wow.
It was something Eddie did. So I'll give you a quick run. Eddie loved the tone of his tube amps. Obviously, there were Marshall stacks back then. He loved how they sounded when they were just fucking cranked, red hot, ready to melt. that was the tone. But you can't play that loud ever. Like, you can't play it in a small bar. You can't turn your amp up that loud. You can't turn your amp up that loud almost anywhere. Like, that's deafeningly brutal. Like, but that's the tone he loved. So he took a dimmer switch off of the wall and he put it as a post master volume.
Wow.
So he could run the amp red hot,
all the way up,
crank volume, but then slide a master volume down.
That's crazy.
So now he's getting the tone he wants, but at an actual usable volume. But the amp is literally almost on fire.
And he literally used a dimmer switch initially off the wall?
Dimmer switch off a wall, off a light switch. And now all the tube amps have a master volume.
Yeah, they do.
You can crank the amp and then turn it down on the other end. No one thought of that before Eddie Van Halen. But he changed the game. He's like, that's the tone I want. I don't want anything but that sound. That's the sound. And that's why Eddie Van Halen sounds different than anyone, especially in 1978. Wow. You listen to that first album, and he is delivered. Signed, sealed, completely developed as a guitar player. And he already has a signature tone and a signature style and all the tapping, and it's on the first album. It's all there. Eddie Van Halen comes right out of the box. And I say they're underrated because of that.
Wow.
Wow is all I have.
All right.
I was tripped out there for a second, Scott. There was like a sound that I thought was like, it sounded like breathing that kept going on in the background. And I'm like, what am I hearing? I muted my own thing.
Yeah.
So if anyone is hearing that, none of us are breathing into the mics. It sounded that's what it sounded like over and over. And I'm like, I muted mine. I'm like, am I dying? Is this loud? But we're good.
All right. I think we have especially, this is one for Dusty especially, because you're a man who knows how to take care of his beard. Says, I've got a question for the three bearded gentlemen. I can't stand having a beard. It itches so much. What is your beard care routine to deal with this?
I don't know if I know Ron has before, but like, that's only until you grow it like a little bit longer than it is. And then it ends. Like, there's like a small stage. I know you know this, Scott. Like, where if you go from like shaved or 5 o'clock shadow, there's like a little window of like a week where it itches for a bit and then it just goes away. That has nothing to do with the beard care to me. The only thing that I do as far as that is make sure my skin stays moisturized.
Yes.
So you don't get like dandruff all over your shirt from your beard.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it with that. I mean, I'm about the laziest person when it comes to self-care. Like, it's funny, you live with 3 females and they're like, I need this cleanser, I need this. I'm like, oh, I just like let the soap run down my face from my head.
Yes.
And I'm like, face is clean, moving on. So all I do is when I dry it and then throw oil in it, and that's it.
The oil, that's the key one for me too, and that provides moisture too. And if you have a wife or girlfriend, then you don't have like a very bristly hard beard that they don't like. So there's that. Ron,
better too.
Do you have some beard care thoughts to add to that?
Yeah, I just have like a beard soap that I use.
Yeah,
like I just pump in my hand. I don't know. I got it for Christmas. I'm not like one of those guys that gives a fuck. I just use what Emily bought me for Christmas.
He's like, I have one. Yes.
Yeah, and I just scrub it in there. But every once in a while, if it's bothering me or if I feel like it's getting flaky and the cream and stuff, I just shave it off. Start fresh.
Yeah.
And I noticed that you guys don't ever do that. So you must be doing something. Like I just go,
like
it's giving me problems. I just take it off.
No, I'll just condition it like it's hair. So like once or twice a week, you just use conditioner so it goes down to your skin.
Yeah.
But the day after that sucks because your beard is too soft and it doesn't look right. It's like, it's kind of like, have you ever done this? This happens all the time. I'll see a girl go, oh, your hair looks great. And she goes, oh, I haven't washed it for 3 days. I'm like, oh, well,
yeah.
I like you dirty. Like, so I think it's the same for dudes with beards. Like, if you ever see a guy whose beard looks really good, it's probably dirty as shit. So there's your answer. That's it.
Michael Devereaux, another super chat. Thank you very much. He has an incredible gym, by the way. I think he's in Indiana, I want to say. And he has Dusty, you remember we did a tour of his gym on an episode that Ron couldn't make it.
Yes.
That's who we're looking at here. Yeah. Incredible gym that he's got set up. So.
Oh, yeah.
What else do we got here? He says he's going to try the beard soap and see how that works for him. Oh, man, we had a big one for Ron here. I'm going to let you think about this one for right now, Ron. We'll come back to it from Rob.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, put this one on the back burner.
I have a question from Rob also. Go ahead.
Do you? He says, who is the most underrated leader in world history? So just start thinking about that.
Joe Biden.
Damn.
Underrated?
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Who did you say?
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden.
We had one about the Palumbo keto diet and a guy wanting to try to gain muscle. Do you want to take that, Dusty, or do you have something from your questions that you want to throw out?
I have one that I think people need to know.
Yeah.
So I want you guys to focus for a minute and listen on this one. If you guys each had to fight one woman from history, who would you fight?
Of one that I could easily beat?
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be some like someone you despise. You know?
Oh.
I mean, there's got to be some violence behind it. There's so many for us, Scott.
If I name
right now.
someone if I name someone who's currently alive, will YouTube pull the episode down for a physical threat?
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
That's a very important question.
Right?
I guess it depends on how you phrase the answer. You know what I mean? Like, I would murder, fill in the blank.
A verbal altercation as far as YouTube.
Scott goes to murder.
Yeah.
I would murder. Wait, well, we were fighting.
We're
We
not
were fighting
killing
before.
people.
Oh, wait.
And
I thought that was
now
part of
I
fighting.
said
I thought that was
fighting
part of
murder.
fighting. Is that not part of fighting? Wait a second. I'm
never
confused.
fighting Scott. Just for
Understand,
the record,
guys, I'm
I
from
don't wanna have
Detroit.
you killed.
I'm from
Oh, yeah.
Detroit. Things are a little different around here.
Straight to murder. We don't.
The fight is not over until one is not
There's
breathing.
murder.
Okay.
That's when the fight's over.
That's how you know when you win, right?
There's murder.
Oh boy. Okay, we are not discussing who we're killing on It's Just Bodybuilding. Moving on to the other Rob's question. Sorry, Rob from Instagram, but we cannot answer this question. We will
We
lose.
thought about it, and we're moving on.
All right. Robert has one for us then, if you guys don't want to answer that. You guys want to answer that?
One. It's derailed now. We're going to be in trouble.
All right.
I'm afraid to even name a fictional woman like a TV character that I punch in the face, just in case the bot didn't know the difference.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. All right. So Robert says, I've been on a Palumbo-style keto diet for a year and a half now. I've been very successful in weight loss, down 50-plus pounds. I've been very happy with my gym performance, noticeable muscle gains, and strength. I hear on many podcasts how important carbs are to your body, gym performance, and have become concerned that I'm leaving gains on the table by consuming such minimal carbs.
This might be fun. We might not agree.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I was just going to say, first of all, if you've lost 50 pounds of fat, then that clearly was your priority. And you did a fantastic job at that. And I would say your diet is doing really good things for your situation. There's a lot of variables. I mean, yeah, carbs are a preferred fuel source, but also, too, it all depends on how you train. If you also kind of train on the lower volume end, you don't need as many carbs. You can train really, really hard on low carbs if you're not doing a ton of volume. Mm-hmm. And your body's obviously in a good groove. You said you were really happy with your gym performance, which I assume means your strength has been good. So, I mean, are you as lean as you want to be yet, or do you have another 50 pounds to go? That's where I would say the crossroads gets to. Like, if your goal is to get abs, and you have abs now, maybe we're in a time where we can explore adding carbohydrates to your diet for performance reasons and just see. But if you're still got to lose another 50 pounds, I'd say soldier on, man. Just keep slamming, drop another 50 pounds, you know? I don't know. There's some variables. I can't tell someone it's time to eat carbs. I'd have to know more.
I was going to say, at the end of the day, first off, make sure you're mentally switching gears. I think a lot of people screw themselves where they decide they want to turn left and right at the same time.
Yes.
I want to get leaner and I want to get bigger and I want to do both today. And I'm like,
Yeah. What do I got to take?
Yeah, exactly. That's easy, Trent. But you know
We've been
what it
over
really
this.
comes down to is if you're like you said, Ron, if you're happy enough at the moment for your leanness, if you feel your performance in the gym is up, why don't you just try bumping up your fats and see what happens? Because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, at the true end of the day, everyone's body is a little different. If you're doing phenomenally on that, your digestion is good and everything feels good, you just need more calories to grow. So they can come from fats, see how
Yep.
that goes. And then the only thing I would suggest is if you're going to bring in carbs at some point, don't change anything else. Don't change your training volume, your sleep, your supplements, anything else. Bring the carbs in. What happens? Like, let your body decide the answer to the question. This is a thing I tell clients all the time. Like, I don't decide what we're going to do with your diet. Your body tells me what to do.
Yeah.
We throw something at it, it responds. We listen to its response, we make adjustments. That's a mistake I think a lot of people make when they're flying solo, Scott, is they're like, you're going to do this, and this is going to happen.
Yep. Because,
I don't know.
there's good insight that putting carbs around your training is going to, help you grow as much muscle as possible. But, yeah, does that apply to you?
Yeah, because
Maybe not.
basically, like the big thing I read there was the gym performance, and I think you got twofold. Is that the diet, or is that because you're cardiovascular in better shape, you're not as fat? I don't know what we're leaving on the table possibly. Let's see. What
And he
says.
does say, he says, thank you so much for taking my question. I do have another 50 pounds to lose. Also, a lower volume, higher intensity training performance has been good. Thank you so much, guys. Keep it up.
Yeah, just keep going, then like you have been, and don't try to rush it now. That'll be where you have an issue. Like if you have another 50 pounds, it's still a lot.
Yeah.
Just keep slowly chipping away at that, and you'll do both. And because your strength is going up, you are going to break the rules a little bit.
Yep.
And put on a little tissue at the same time. So win-win.
Absolutely. Yeah, because a lot of people don't realize that if you're going from, say, like just eating chaos, nothing, and then having a burger for lunch or whatever, and then not eating anything, and then having a, microwave pizza for dinner. If you go from that to eating a Palumbo style diet, 5 servings of protein a day, that in itself, you're going to start recomping to an extent, even while you are losing fat. So I think that it'll be good. Ron, he updated us. He told us he does have another 50 pounds to go.
Yeah, I'd say congratulations on the amazing gains.
Yeah.
Obviously the diet works.
We got one here about IGF DES dosages per day. I'm going to rephrase his question. Ron, when you turned pro, I'm going to ask each of you a question. When you turned pro, how much IGF DES were you using per day?
0.
Dusty, when you turned pro, how much IGF DES were you using a day?
I've never used it in my life.
Okay. I kind of rephrased his question for a reason. You know what I'm saying? Because I remember being on the message boards, which is nowadays like the same people I think are on Reddit. And you could like go on Reddit and learn all about like proper dosing of IGF and this and that. And I really had it in my head like, oh, okay, so all these pros, they all have to be using a lot of IGF. And at the time we were using all the LR3. I was like, so they got to be using a lot, obviously, to get to the size of a guy like Dusty Hanshaw. And then the first person who told me they didn't was John Meadows. He's like, no, I never touched that stuff. I was like, wait a minute. So there's all these other guys that I'm talking to that are my size, light heavyweight, middleweight, and we're all trying and we're using this stuff like crazy and we think we need it when guys like John Meadows and now I hear Dusty and Ron never touched it once. So I think there's something to be said in that. That's all.
Yeah.
Sure.
I used LR3. I used a bunch of that in the day, just trying it out and stuff. But, this stuff has never been what made the difference. Like, I never saw anyone like order stuff off a peptide site and then the following year show up looking different.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I've seen natural guys start using steroids and the next year they look a lot different. I've seen guys use real growth hormone for the first time and the next year they look different. But I've never seen anybody add any of this stuff. And the next year it was like, what'd you do?
Right.
Never, not
Agreed.
once, ever. So. it falls into that, like, creating an optimal environment. There's a million things that do that, Again, I don't know. I just have no experience with the DES at all. So, and I don't know
think it
anyone
come down
does.
to if you need to know the exact dose, then I think that's kind of part of your answer. Because like if somebody comes to me and they say, I'm natural, how much of this IGF should I use? I'm like, I don't know. And if they come to me and they say, if I take 200 milligrams of test for 10 weeks, am I going to get bigger? I'm going to go, yes. Yes, you are. Without question. Did you get your Costco membership yet?
Yeah, we're full circle.
Okay, you're ready.
Membership.
Yeah.
I like how Dusty and I saw that at the same time.
Yeah, it was full circle. Here it is.
I just thought I'd throw this one up there.
That wasn't part of your Costco list last week. It was not.
Aceto is going to get Andrew jacked at his best. Are you guys excited? We talked a little bit about that last week.
Very. I haven't been excited about an Arnold in a minute because I've told Ron about this, and this is no disrespect to all the guys that are much better than I ever was, but we came up in an era where it was nuts. I mean, I've seen Branch, Kai, Dex, Jay, Ronnie win Arnold Classics. So it is not the same currently. Even live, no one has blown my mind in a minute. And this show is very exciting because I feel like it's going to be a war, which is awesome.
I'm looking forward to it. I think that I'm a lot more excited to see Andrew now that he's working with Aceto because I want to see if I want to see what the difference is. Like, was Aceto able to help him? And we all know that it's mostly like a communication and a mental thing at that level. Aceto, helping him is a lot more to do with that. So I'm really interested. I do want to just comment. The one guy here, Ryan, said Fouad's latest pic shows IGF difference, but it's in conjunction over a year. I think that picture was also, Fouad was talking about using real IGF too, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
I just want to say that's not what we were talking about. We were talking about the DES. But anyways.
Go ahead.
Fuad's latest picture, he posted a before and after.
Yeah, yes, that's what he's saying.
Okay.
But I'm just saying that probably wasn't DES that he was talking about. So that's I thought I'd throw that in for context.
I will add too that, and this isn't like a scare tactic, but it's something that I had to be concerned about. And I still did use IGF too. I don't want to say two things. I don't want to say that it's not going to do anything for you, but I do feel like it's not the fountain of youth or the key that I once thought it was.
Right.
And I would like to pass that info on to anybody else who's listening so that they may save some money that I had spent that I didn't need to spend. That's really kind of like my biggest concern is like I really felt like I needed something. And at the end of the day, it wasn't as big of a deal as I thought it would have been. I'll say that. And I'll also say, from what I heard, the way Dr. Eric Serrano had explained it is that so when you take growth hormone, your IGF levels go up, right? And that's all great for muscle growth, and it grows everything. And when you use so basically, IGF helps to keep a cell growing, and our body has mutating cells all the time. Cells grow, they mutate, and then our bodies recognize that and they die. If you have a mutating cell that continues to grow, that's called cancer. And if you're using growth hormone and the IGF goes up, the way he put it, there's like a series of checks and balances, and I don't know how that works, that kind of keeps everything in alignment. Whereas if you just take straight IGF, then you are possibly more likely to keep that cell growing that would have otherwise died. Meaning you may, not with growth hormone, but with pure IGF, you may have cancer that you wouldn't have had otherwise. And Dr. Rhonda Patrick had done a ton of research on IGF, and she had said that, there are the pros and the cons, that if you take IGF, your quality of life might be better, but you will possibly have a shorter life. If you keep your IGF levels really low, like longevity people do, you may have a longer life, but the quality will be lower. So she calls it the IGF trade-off. So just things to think about, beyond bodybuilding, about like what our long-term status is. And I know a guy who, there's no proof of this, but he was a local guy who died of brain cancer, and he absolutely loved IGF. And I don't know how long he had that brain cancer before he had stopped taking it, but I know he was pushing pretty hard with bodybuilding. He loved growth, he loved IGF, and then one day he had to stop because they found out he had a tumor in his brain. And I would hate to have been like taking that stuff for a couple months even. You know what I mean? Made that worse.
Right.
So
we got to draw one question here from Matt Blevins.
I was going there next. This
because
one?
that shirt, yes, Mutant is doing. So we did a little co-op between me and them, and that shirt will be available, I think, in a month on immutant.com. So up
And
to
the-
5XL.
And the finished product look awesome. Dusty was wearing one the other day.
Yeah, so they're the new. They're. I will say that the ones we did together are better than mine were.
Yeah.
Because I love the material that they did on the shirt and the cut. So I'm excited for people to see them.
It's like a
It's
leg
like-
day shirt.
Yeah.
Really
Oh
good.
yeah.
I've got one.
This guy's like, I have.
I
one.
got one. Yeah.
I think you and a couple of us are the only ones that do. So
Really? Oh, I feel special. In fact, I wore it the other day to train in, and I thought I didn't need to take a shower yet, but Victoria smelled it, and she was like, "You need to go take a shower and throw that shirt in the laundry."
True love.
Thank you.
True love.
So it means it was a good workout. On the note of shirts, question for Dusty: if I bring a shirt to the Arnold Expo, can you cut it like you make your cutoff shirts?
That would not be the first time that's happened. In fact, I think I cut shirts at every expo.
Do you really?
So yes, yeah, I did 3 of them in Germany.
How do you
Or,
cut
I
them?
mean, in England. I just cut them the way I do, but it's just apparently people like the way I do it. It's like it's blind cut just from the under the lat up to the trap, you know. So it's a little more back and trap is showing the way I do it. But I think the reason people mess it up is because you don't want to cut off your logo in the front either. Whatever's there. So
Okay.
bring me sharp scissors, Andy. Sneak those in. Smuggle.
Steven is cooking beef right now, and he says, how should I season my 3 pounds of ground beef that I'm cooking right now? What's your
Well,
go-to,
do you
basically, what's your go-to beef seasoning?
I use Dale's, the sauce. With 3 pounds, I would do 3 tablespoons of Dale's, and then onion powder and garlic powder, and that's it. Dale's is amazing. It's a
I use
liquid.
High's seasoning salt. I just put it on everything. Egg
See?
whites, steak, chicken, fish. I don't care. Just put it on everything. You know.
Let's see,
Emily.
another one here. Question for the show. Me and my wife are going to BC this summer from Toronto, and I was wondering if Ron could recommend a few spots to check out close to his gym. I already have Iron Bowl on my list.
Well,
Okay,
Iron
good.
Bowl was
Fantastic.
sold, and it's now called Sushi Way. And they
But
have
it
the
still says
same
Iron Bowl
menu.
on the wall.
Still says Iron Bowl on the wall. They're transitioning, but still still the restaurant across from the gym. Still eat there all the time. So yeah. So
I think they're
it's still
feeling their losses from us not being there after a week. Because I ate there like twice a day, every day while we were there.
Yeah.
And so did Jamie, and so did Scott.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, what else? So you got to give him another spots. I mean, Ron's the worst person to ask about food, by the way. But go ahead.
Is this just food? Is he just saying food?
He said spots, so maybe you have
spots,
some
it could
other
be anything.
suggestions. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
No, he doesn't have that either, unless you want to ride a
yeah.
bike.
Yeah. No, well, there's this one parking lot behind the superstore.
Yeah.
Pretty flat. Pretty flat. Not
Dry.
the best. Sometimes there's some junkies there. It smells like urine, but it'll do for February. You know, stuff like that. I got a million of them. There's just, if you're coming out to BC, I'm not into raw fish, but if you like sushi, then it's like a smorgasbord of the best sushi restaurants you can find in Canada, all over the place. So just keep that in mind that you're in like sushi heaven out here in Vancouver.
Oh, I know where you should go. Can you put this on the screen? Do I have to
Text it
do I have
over.
to message this to you? Okay, one sec.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna send
what is
this
it?
over because this is a place that I found in Vancouver. One sec, I'm screen recording.
Ooh, we got like a video coming here, I
I'm
think.
doing a video,
Yeah.
and it's almost done. There we go. Perfect. Okay, stop. Boom. This is going to be, don't worry, it's worth the wait. Okay. Edit. Okay. There we go. Do a little this. And it's coming over to you, Scott. This is fantastic.
All right. I will check it
This
out.
is worth the wait, people. I want them to realize that I'm sending them to this great spot.
All right.
Done. Perfect.
Let's see here. It'll probably take a minute to come through. I'll let you guys know when I get it.
What's it gonna be? What's
There's
it gonna be?
so many great comments. Am I breathing into my mic?
I told you. That's what I kept hearing.
Maybe that was me.
sound.
Maybe it was me. I try to keep up, right on the mic.
I don't
It's possible.
I don't mind.
I get a little uncomfortable because I feel like you're in my ear.
Like right on your ear.
Like you're
Yeah.
behind me. You know what I mean? Okay, it's coming now. This is it. It's an only 11-second video, so there it is. You have it.
All right. The only PED
Put it right up on the
for
screen. so we
maximum
can talk about
performance
it.
is cigars.
Cigars.
All right. Let's see if I can just drag this in. What do we got here?
The 7-inch Waffle House.
Oh shit! This is
Okay, so those are one option. Now wait, and then you have this option. And I find it interesting that they're
That's funny.
That's a real place in BC, Vancouver. I can't hear you, Scott.
Scott's muted. He has nothing to
Why is he
say
muted?
after the
I've
waffle
offended
dicks.
him. I've offended him.
Oh, somehow I got
Some-
muted. That's better.
There you go.
There
Yeah.
you go.
So were you surprised by that video that we found? I was
Yeah.
like, oh, this looks like oh, I know which one I'm eating.
I didn't like the way it started, but I like how it ended. Yeah.
I think what they're doing is they're finding out who their customer base is based on what they order.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was so I sent that to George and Ron this morning. I said, how did we not go film me eating both of these for Mutant's YouTube channel? Like,
Yes.
it's so wrong. It would have been easily great. So if they get a huge influx of business, they owe me a cent to me that I can eat.
Was watching some old Mutant on a Mission episodes with Ron, and he was looking thick. It says, but shredded now. So there you go.
Might have been 300 plus in some of the old videos. So
Yeah. We had that one question that I wanted to ask Ron, but I
back
also
to it.
I don't know if you guys had anything else before we closed.
I had one. It was a social question.
Yeah, yeah.
Totally off topic. Totally off topic social question. So, Emily doesn't care about a lot of stuff. She just does her thing, right? Whereas I am a little bit more like, where are we? Who's around? Right? I'm a little bit more like that. She's just a bit of a gunslinger. Okay? So, so we get in the elevator the other day. She's telling me a story. She's telling me a story as we're leaving the car. We were waiting for the elevator. She's telling me a story. She's catching me up on something. And then we step into the elevator.
Yeah.
Now, I go silent.
Of course.
I give everyone the nod. We're in the building, so like I know everyone. I'm like, hey everybody.
Yeah.
Step in. I'm polite, but I stand there silently. She keeps telling me the story.
No.
And I look at her. I'm like, Anna. It's an elevator pause. And I go, we got to take an elevator pause. Anyways, we get out of the elevator at the top, and I'm like, there was no elevator pause there. And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you got to take an elevator pause. And the story pauses while you ride, and then when you get off, you continue the story. And she's like, I don't care about that. How are you guys for talking on elevators? Because it drives me crazy. I don't want to do it. I want to pause a conversation, and we'll continue when we get off the elevator.
I back you 1,000,000%. I thought immediately the same thing. Because in reverse, I don't want to hear about your shit. I don't care. And I'm halfway in this conversation. What if I'm interested? I'm going to stop you and go, oh, take it from the top. This sounds
Who's Tony?
important. Yeah, like, where did you meet Tony? And why was he eating this, donut that looked like a, I want to know.
Yeah.
You can't, especially the things that I talk about. Can you imagine if people like actually heard everything I spoke about without me filtering?
Well, that's the thing.
They're in your
Nothing I talk
building.
about is really something I want normal people to hear. Like almost nothing.
exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say it
Almost
depends on the
nothing.
conversation. Depends on the topic. If
Yeah, and
I feel
odds
like
are.
yeah, odds are.
A pretty strong chance. I mean, do I look at the guy? Do I tell him like, yeah, would you lick the lady in 27B or no? Because that's what we were talking about.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
It's funny.
Sorry.
It's funny
That's
to
your
me.
wife. Sorry.
Did you say anything after? Were you like you should have taken the pause? Did you say?
Of course he did.
Well, after we got to the elevator, I just looked at her when I was unlocking the door. I'm like, what? No, it was like almost like a Curb Your Enthusiasm moment. I look at her, I'm like, no elevator pause. She goes, what are you talking about? And I go, you didn't have an elevator pause. And I'm like unlocking the door. She's like, elevator pause. What, I got to stop talking because we get in the elevator? And I'm like, well, I
Yes.
don't know. I would have. And she's like, you're ridiculous. And then she's giving it to me. She's like, I'm finishing my story. And I go, I know. I do a pause. And she goes, I know. You pause for everything. There's all these pauses you gotta take.
But
She just
in her
unleashes
defense,
on me.
in her defense, she does not pause a story that comes to her mind freshly in the middle of your favorite song driving in the car.
Yeah. There's that.
Pause there either, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's your answer. It's all or nothing, buddy. I mean,
you go.
if you had a great thought during her favorite song, would just wait. You'd hold it. Hold
I'm
it.
gonna tell her about that when the song ends.
Exactly. See, that's all this is. Elevator.
I just had
songs.
to see how you guys felt about that.
Scott, do you pause? You didn't even answer.
I don't know. I
Scott
think it
paused.
depends on the conversation. I really do. I feel like it depends. I don't get in enough. Here's the thing. I don't get in enough elevators to
I don't have
know.
enough elevator
Whoa, okay.
experience.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna throw a little test on this, okay?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're on your phone, okay? It's a
Yeah.
speakerphone, right?
Yeah.
And I'm telling you a conversation. Do you ask me to pause, or do you let me roll as if they like? Who knows what he's about to say?
Okay, so if that was the case, I would probably say, "Hey, I'm getting in an elevator, so if I lose you, I will call you right back." And then if you're in it's breaking up over here. I would probably take you off a speaker if we were getting in an elevator, and I would continue to listen to the story. In fact, I'm certain that's what I would do. Yeah.
Because I do that all. Like my mom will do that. She'll be somewhere and she's like, "Oh, hey, I'm walking into a place." I'm like, "So don't say whore." And she's like, "Dusty."
Yeah.
I'm still on speaker apparently.
I usually use my earbuds if I'm in public anyway. Like I like to have the earbuds in. It's my buffer to the world. So I might have like a podcast on while I'm grocery shopping too, just so I don't have to embrace the environment
Two
so
pods
much.
or one?
I'll do both all the way. But I keep the
I would
volume.
never guessed you to be a both guy. I need to know what's going on around.
Oh no, volume's
There's a
low
guy
enough.
behind me.
We could still talk.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And it's not music, it's voices, people talking, so you can still hear everything else. Yeah.
Sorry, I needed to know. Those things matter. Whew. All right, last
All right.
question, Scott. For Ron,
Yes.
go.
So it was here it is. I just found it again.
You don't remember.
From Rob. Well, I wanted to bring it back up. Deep Ron question. Who is the most underrated leader in world history?
Damn.
Only Ron can answer this for us, too. Like Dusty and I, we got nothing. You
I was
know?
going to say Zeus.
I don't know. I don't know quite enough about world history to really embark on this.
That's the way he starts the conversations, Dusty. You know, I don't know a lot
And
about
then he
you.
comes up and nails everything about someone's life since 1622.
Yeah, since 1622, the
ahead.
year was.
Go ahead with your perfect
Sometimes-
answer now.
Sometimes I find myself going down the odd little rabbit hole where I'll just see a video that catches my attention.
Yeah.
Right. And I watched one about, again, I'm not politically left or right. And again, I know that times have changed a lot since the 60s as far as what it means to be left or right. That's been almost redefined. But I've seen a couple videos, you know, like how they kind of released like thousands of semi-redacted CIA files regarding the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've been
Yeah.
watching a show about that, which is fascinating. Yeah.
Kennedy, man, he was taken out because he wasn't on board with the plan.
Yeah.
Plan for what, you know, whoever it is that really wants certain things to happen. He was he also was what an unbelievably cool-headed guy through the Cuban Missile Crisis. We could have wound up in a nuclear war. We were minutes away from nuclear war, and he held in there, and he was like, we can't, you know what I mean? There was some really critical stuff that happened that Kennedy made the right call on. Kennedy did some stuff. Again, I don't know everything about the guy. I know he's banging Marilyn, cheating on his wife, blah, blah, blah. I don't give a shit.
Good dude.
Me neither.
He was taken out for a reason.
I agree with that.
Like, I feel like the bad guys took him out, and whenever the bad guys step up to do something like that, like, I mean, how much more top shelf is that? Like, that crime, taking out a leader of that level, that's like, you can't get bigger than that. And for them to go through that effort to do that, he was pissing off the people that, they were trying to create a situation that would start a war with Cuba, and he said no.
Yeah. There's a show about it.
They
on
cut
history.
He only got 2.5 years of being president. And, so, I'd say like he was extraordinarily important from the stuff I've seen lately. I'm starting to sort of try and appreciate like some of the stuff that I didn't understand as a kid, Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, that's not I don't have a lot of expertise in, presidents of the 60s, but, I'm just going to throw that out there and say Kennedy's going to be my answer.
It's a good answer. I think you didn't go wrong there. Yeah.
He was banging Marilyn, and that alone makes him a leader in my book.
Yeah, most underrated leader, right for that. Yeah,
absolutely. Not accurately, underrated. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Best answer. Not even close to accurately rated.
That was going to be my only reason for saying him.
Yeah.
Good man.
Oh, that's all we got. We did have more questions. We just don't have more time. I did want to say too, though, thank you to everybody. We got a lot of comments about me being on the tabletop show with Dave Tate the other day.
I want to talk about that.
Okay. Well, I want to say too, though, thank you to everybody who chimed in, because I asked everybody. I was like, hey, if you're part of the Last 5 Minute crew, I need you guys over there to come hang out and comment. And I went back and I looked at the live stream. And literally, it's all our people, like, just going at it back and forth. There's even some overrated, underrateds in it and stuff. Like, they just awesome. Went to town, Last 5 Minute crew. And the Cabbage crew. We're part of what you guys wouldn't know about until we get Dave Crossland on, which we got to do that soon. So it was cool to see everybody support that. And I really appreciate it.
Awesome. I want to say I'm halfway through your 3.5 hour interview.
Oh, cool.
And, man, like... I have to say, I feel like I've done a disservice to my co-host Scott by not digging into him for some of this stuff. And I did want to tell you, like, you went so far. I mean, an hour and a half in, you've gone so far into your recovery, and your addiction and all that stuff, that I want to say, like, wow, I felt bad that I haven't dug at you for some of that stuff, but I sort of felt like, I don't know. I just sort of felt like it would present itself over time if you wanted to talk about it, that sort of thing. But Dave like leaned into you.
Yeah.
And I really was like blown away with some of the stuff you said. There's a lot of stuff I didn't realize you went through.
Huh.
And also the way you detailed it and explained it, like, I just wanted to say so far it's been really great. Like I've gotten to know you, like, a bunch of stuff I just didn't know from this podcast. So it really, really informative.
That means a lot, man. Yeah, and I was really happy with it. Like when he was on Blood, Sweat and Gear, and it was interesting because I had never known that the reason that Elite FTS exists is so that he can share information freely with people and help educate people. And, that when he was younger, there were people like even like Louis Simmons that just like helped him for free. And he wanted to be able to share education with the world. So with others, people who needed it. And that's that's the reason they sell equipment. Like the equipment doesn't come first. The education comes first. And that blew me away because I didn't know that. I always thought like, oh, Elite's an equipment company. No, Elite's an education company. And that's the equipment helps to fund being able to pay for articles and everything they do. His podcast studio is mind blowing, by the way. Like he's got a legit studio set up right there in the middle of the gym, which is so nice. Yeah. So when he was on our show and we were talking about that, I told him that. I was like, I didn't know that. And I told him that was my motivation too. Like, that's what I want to do, and that's what I'm trying to do. And so we really connected. And he reached out after that, and he was like, hey, man, I'd really love to have you down on the podcast and tell your story about why you do what you do. And it was the best interview that I've ever had somebody do of me. Like, he, you know, we really dug into it. And you know what, man, I do share this stuff, but I don't. Here's the reality is, I feel like, to me, this show is about you guys, and I'm here to help support that. So I don't want to make it about me. I don't try to get in the middle of it and like tell my story all the time. I will share stuff, and I'm not trying to hide anything, but it's not my priority. I really don't see it as that, you know? So I think you guys have so much to share, and I want to help the world see that stuff. Like, that's really what this is to me. So it was cool, though. It was awesome.
Well, I think I can speak for
though,
Dusty.
You know, what you've been through, right? I mean,
yeah.
Because when I think about the things people say to me on life situations that have happened, I can only imagine you could multiply that by 100 for the things you've been through. You know what I mean?
You know, it's all we all been through our own. You know,
no, but just because there's a lot of people who've been through similar, or know someone who have, and it's tricky. Like, if someone asks me about something like that, all I can do is defer. I'm like, because, you know, it's like, explain to somebody what it's like to fly an airplane that's never flown an airplane. Like, you can't. You know what I mean? I think it's valuable. I'm actually stoked to see that part too, because I'm sure the listeners have a different view too, because it also tells very much about if you've been through that and then landed here, and your primary goal in life is helping and educating. It's like, I mean, that alone is pretty telling. Where someone, you know, how someone kind of sees the world, and to me. Yeah,
it was good. I'm really grateful that I had that opportunity. And, you know, I had mentioned it in a post, but like, you know, 15 years ago, I remember my friend VJ buying the Elite FTS Mountain Dog band pack. It was like $100. I couldn't afford that. I couldn't afford that to just drop $100. Did you?
Yeah.
I got it later. But, like, you know, we would watch all of Meadows' stuff, and by extension of that, I learned about Dave Tate. And then I saw some, and I got to tell him this on the show. I was like, you know, and I still, some of his sets that I had seen him do are just, like, burned in my brain when I think about intensity. Like, I think about him doing a couple of specific sets that I watched him do where I'm like, this doesn't seem possible. You know, he just keeps going and going. And I can so relate to that, and like the way I can relate to the way you train, Dusty, and what I saw in you, Ron, when you guys were doing that Mutant on a Mission the other week. Like, there's something you pull from when you need to pull from it. That's a very special thing. And when I think about high intensity, what that upper end is, I think of Dave, and I always have after seeing him. And now to like fast forward from that time when I couldn't even afford to buy the Meadows band pack to today, where like I was actually sitting there, like we talked for 3 hours, and then we talked for like another 2 after that. He invites me to his gym, you know, invites me to his home basically, and I got to hang out with the guy all day. It's like,
that's sick.
It's incredible, you know, like mind blowing. If you would have told me that back then, I never would have believed. I wouldn't know how that would have ever come to be, you know.
Yeah, I must say, like, you know, I've done like 50 plus episodes of Mutant on a Mission now, you know, 7 seasons of Mutant on a Mission. And I'd say one of the gyms that I've had the most people go, like, you got to go there, was the Elite FTS episode I did. Of course, it was the previous location.
Yeah.
I think which was technically, I think, their 4th location. That was the one I was at. It was the old Meadows one that everyone remembers, that location, right?
Yeah.
Make sure you bring your shin pads. You know, but they had the big wooden table in the middle of the gym and stuff. And I remember when I was there, like I was just there on like, you know, a Tuesday. Yeah. Right. Meadows drove down to train with us. Ken Jackson came with them. We all had a big back workout. It was great. You know, Dave Tate was an awesome, hospitable host, super friendly, proud of the gym, proud to show it off.
Yeah.
And then while we're there, you know, there's just all these other people in there squatting, and and Goggins, is it Steve Goggins, the power lifter?
Okay.
He was in there, and I just started, briefly talk to him, and he seemed like a great guy. We're out for dinner after, and I said to him, I'm like, so, you were obviously a very high level power lifter. You're coaching now. And he's like, yeah. And I go, oh, yeah. And I didn't know anything about him.
Yeah.
And I just said, oh yeah, what was your thing? We're just doing that, brief introduction where we're kind of describing ourselves. You know what I mean? So, Steve Goggins, Hall of Fame powerlifter. And he's like, oh, well, I squatted over 1,000, and I did this. And I'm like, holy shit.
Oh, just that.
Squatted over
It's just over
1,000.
1,000.
And then they all started laughing, and they all started telling me stories about him squatting over 1,000 pounds, and just like these types of guys at this level are just in that little gym. And back then it was literally middle of nowhere. It was out in, what was it called? It was called, what's the name of the town? Wasn't it Windsor?
London.
Yes, it had an Ontario name. I knew there was a matching name.
Yeah.
London, Ontario. Yeah. It was in London, Ohio. It was just outside of Columbus.
Yeah.
In that small town and down that back alley.
And now it's in the country. They've got chickens now. They've got a chicken coop out back now.
Yeah. And it's just I'm like, oh man, you go all the gyms and all the big gyms and all the cities in the world, and the 1,000-pound squatters are out in this back alley.
Yeah.
In this warehouse with no signs. I just thought it was one of the coolest places that I'd ever been. And you could tell that it was all about passing on knowledge. That was just the vibe in there, was just knowledge being passed on. And that was a theme with my conversation with Dave the whole day. Yeah. And Goggins and all the other people that were there training with Goggins and the whole powerlifting crew. It was just from the beginners that were there up to the people that were squatting 700. It was just all about passing on knowledge. And so it was a really great place. And so I can imagine what it was like to spend 3 hours at the new location, with Dave. So
it was cool. I did a little bit of content before that. So I literally was there all day. I showed up at 10:30 and I didn't leave. I didn't realize how long the show went. And then I didn't realize that we talked for a couple hours after that. And when I was leaving, the sun was setting and it was going on 7 o'clock at night. I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
That's
fantastic.
Awesome.
I look forward to finishing the episode, Scott.
Yeah. I'll look forward to hearing your thoughts after you do.
Yeah. Okay. So that's it, guys. Live episode in the books. We didn't get a chance to record Monday. Scott was traveling, obviously. And we're really glad to get a live one out to you guys. So thanks very much. Remember, like, share, subscribe, comment, and
ring the bell.
Yes. There we go. And remember, IamMutant.com, big supporters of the show. Mutant, of course. Dusty20 and Big Ron 20, the codes you can use on the website to save yourself 20%. Of course, Dusty's 21%. Please don't let that sway your vote. And and yeah, we appreciate it. Thanks for all your questions and humoring us and putting up with us talking about anything but but what you're here to listen to.
And thanks for the super chats, guys. You guys are awesome. I appreciate you. And thank you to everybody from Patreon. And next week, we will have to discuss Arnold Classic plans. I hope that we get to see everybody there. That'll be awesome.
Yes, I'm looking forward to the Arnold next weekend. And we're going to have a blast. And
it's coming fast.
Yeah, I can't wait to see everybody, And I'm sure some of the same people from the O are going to be there.
Yes,
for sure. People. So we're looking forward to it. Thanks, everybody. Remember, it's just bodybuilding.